Welcome to A Fork in Time, the alternate history podcast.
Welcome back to A Fork in Time, the alternate history podcast. We have got a group of people that I can see on my screen here that have never been on an episode by themselves together. So I'm very excited about this episode. This is Alexis, of course, the co-founder of the podcast. I guess I'm in the host chair today, but I did not suggest the episode topic that we will get to here in a second. That was somebody else that I can see on my screen. But as you'll probably be able to tell, there's a reason I'm on this episode. But I'm going to go around my screen and I'm going to introduce the people I have with me on this episode. First up on my left side of my screen, so I'm going to start there, is Eric Bond. Eric, say hi to everybody for us.
Hi, everybody.
All right, next on my screen is Robert Koshu. Robert, how are you doing this evening?
Very good. I'm impressed you pronounced my name correctly.
I've known you for a little bit. And my other Eric, we're going to do our best to keep the Eric straight this episode because we also have Eric Rush joining us tonight. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, Alexis? Hi, everybody.
Hello. So like I said, we have never actually all been on an episode, just us together, and we have actually only been on a couple episodes with each other. So really excited about this episode. And we are going to be doing a topic tonight that is pretty timely considering current events that we are going to get into in a little bit. But as I mentioned, I was not the person that suggested the topic for this episode. So I'm actually going to throw it to Eric Bond to tell us what we are going to be talking about tonight. He's laughing. And I think you're on mute.
Oh, no.
Oh, there you go. You're good.
Excellent. Okay, my microphone briefly unplugged itself because it has social anxiety too, I guess. Anyway, so as Alexis said, we have never been on an episode together, but you know who's never been king before? Prince Charles. Now King Charles, and that's appropriate. So what is a more natural topic to discuss with Charles than Diana? But this time we're taking her out of the equation. This is life without Diana. Will it be like rock and roll without a drummer? We'll find out, because in this episode, Camilla and Charles get together earlier.
Exactly. So you might remember we've done an episode where we talked about the infamous car crash with Diana, and we had Diana surviving that episode. So this is a little bit different, though, because Diana, we will bring her up. She will be in the episode, but she will never be Charles's wife as we go along. So we're going to get started, of course, as we always do. We got to do a little bit of the what did. Of course, this is recent history, so everyone should be fairly familiar with what happened. But we are talking, as Eric mentioned, about if Charles and Camilla had actually gotten married. So what actually does happen in the real timeline is Charles and Camilla do meet. They have some mutual friends, and they meet right before Charles actually goes off and does some military training. He was, of course, the heir to the throne. Now he is the brand new King Charles III. So he went off and did some military training, first with the Navy, then with the Air Force. And in the real timeline, while he was away on that military training, Camilla actually got married to a boyfriend that she had also had kind of on and off, Andrew Parker Bowles. And they went on to have a couple of kids. But of course, we all know what happened in the real timeline. Charles and Camilla kept up their relationship, not just cordial friendship, but a little bit more than that, despite the fact that Camilla and Andrew had 2 kids. And then, of course, when Camilla and Andrew divorced, and after Diana was out of the picture in the real timeline, Camilla and Charles actually got married back in 2005. So now she is Queen Consort Camilla, while Charles is Charles III. But that is not where we're going in this episode. So would anybody like to take the lead on kind of our fork and where we are diverging on this episode?
I think
Robert's
that's an Eric,
getting-
Eric Bond
Eric or Robert, who wants to?
There
take
we
the
go.
lead?
Now I'm muted. There we go.
or Robert.
So I will take that. The fork we're going to take is, so right before Charles goes off, he proposes. Now, there was a lot of little things going on before that. Lord Mountbatten, Richard Mountbatten, who had some interesting World War II things that we ought to visit at some point with Dunkirk that could be interesting. He had actually tried to set Charles up with his granddaughter, and then the two dads, Prince Philip and the Prince Consort of Queen Elizabeth, and Lord Mountbatten actually wanted them to go tour India together when Charles toured India. But, they both thought, it was a bad idea, because the two guys were basically conspiring to set him up with his goddaughter. Well, in essence, before that happens, Queen Elizabeth gets word of what's going on. And she pulls both guys in her way and says, stop it. No, Amanda is too young. Charles cannot marry her. Charles takes the inroad at that moment and says, I've got an idea, Mom. There's a girl I've been dating. And so he proposes to Camilla at that point. So we're 71, 72, 73, somewhere in there. Kind of depending on where we want to land the wedding in this. Does he go do his service while they're engaged? I guess it's something we're going to need to talk about. Or does they get married and then he goes and does his service?
Definitely see them kind of getting engaged before they do the service. The thing that immediately popped into my head when you were talking is kind of the going back to Philip and Elizabeth, them getting engaged, and then she goes on this big grand tour to Africa and all these places. I don't think it was a thing of like, maybe they'll get bored of each other, but there might have been a thing with Charles and Camilla of maybe they'll get bored of each other while he's on military training. Maybe we won't have to go through with a wedding. So I can definitely see for sure, hey, you can propose, that's fine, but hey, you're going to go do your military training.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach.
Especially because he had completed college first. I think that was like a main thing of he had been even putting off military training to where it's like, okay, you got a degree, now you're getting married. When are you going to the service, son?
Well, yeah, especially because he's the first heir that actually had a degree, actually went to university. Usually it was like you went and did your military training. That's how you kind of, quote, prepared for the role of monarch. So yeah, it was definitely like, and when are you doing your service? Okay, here we go.
Because I guess we're all waiting for Independence Day 3, where Charles III takes off in a fighter jet to ward off whatever alien species comes after us next.
I'd watch that movie.
So you'd watch that movie, Eric? That sounds amazing.
All right, so he goes and he does his military training. So starting in 71, he gives we'll leave that more or less intact. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think a 73 wedding is not out of the realm of possibility.
Because you would have been what, 25, 26 at the time?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that sounds very reasonable. So all you'd have to really do is have a fiance that was willing to wait, or a girlfriend that was willing to wait for a couple of years while he was in military training. I mean, that happens all the time, right?
Right.
So I think that's a good point of divergence.
Okay. So we have a royal wedding of Charles and Camilla in 73.
Nobody is allowed to bring up that her great-grandmother was his great-grandfather's mistress.
Even though she did.
She definitely did. I'm saying nobody is allowed to then talk about it further at that point. However, I'm sure some American company probably saw that and was like, let's make a movie about their relationship. That would be our modern Hallmark production. It would be a TV movie of some kind, I think.
Probably.
of the
like that one, too.
miniseries. Okay, so where do we keep going, Alexis? You're
So, but I want to go back a little because we
Okay.
did talk a little bit about this off podcast. So we talked about when does he propose? And so we've landed. Okay, they're engaged. Charles goes off and does military training. What do those 2 years look like for Camilla? And the reason why I bring this up is kind of what we were talking about off podcast. Is now she is going to be the wife of the heir and eventually the queen consort. Like we've said, Diana has never ended the picture, so she will be, she is the person. So I kind of want to explore a little bit, and again, it kind of goes on off of the conversation we were having before we started recording. What do those 2 years look like for Camilla in terms of who's her confidant, who's kind of giving her, who's teaching her the ropes, who's teaching her what to expect? What do we think about that?
Well, I'm just taking a quick look right now because I wanted to see what her family background was real quick. Because she was from a middle class household, wasn't she? Like she was at least like a lady of some standing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So she jumps in. Since the queen put a kibosh on it, does the queen go ahead and say, you know what, we're just going to make this work?
Since this is happening, come on,
Does the queen take her under her role and pretty much, because the queen mother wasn't really a fan either, but
Right.
I think the queen, but that's because the queen mother wanted a Spencer daughter to be.
Well, because Charles had dated that other Spencer daughter too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That other Spencer daughter wanted nothing to do with Prince. So
is that the movie we'll get in 30 years? The other Spencer girl?
Maybe. Instead of the other Boleyn girl, it'll be the other Spencer girl.
Yeah. I think Anne would probably be a good match for Camilla. Like they both have interest in equestrianism. Like I think that is something that the two could definitely bond over and become friends about. Also, Anne was kind of more outspoken, but still able to work within the gears. That might also help smooth out any relationship issues between Prince Philip and Camilla at that time, given how he and Uncle Dickie were so heartbroken about their match not going through.
Well, Anne was at the wedding of Camilla and Andrew Parker Bowles. So, I mean, so she was, she at least had some sort of affinity for Camilla or the relationship or whatever. So, I mean, I think it's very plausible that Anne might have taken Camilla sort of under her wing or at least been a sort of a peer advisor, you'd say. I could see that for sure.
Didn't they both date Andrew Parker Bowles at sometimes during their lives? Am I misremembering that?
I think the queen might lead. I think the crown might lead you to believe that.
Yeah. I barely made it through the first season, to be honest.
Oh, it's good. Thank you, COVID. COVID got me through all the seasons of the crown. The other thing I would say, I would tend to agree with that. I would tend to agree that maybe Anne is the one that kind of takes Camilla under her wing, so to speak. The other reason I would think that is because Anne and Charles are very close.
Yeah.
Charles kind of thinks of Anne as his confidant. I mean, she's the one that remembers what it was like before his mom was queen. So they can kind of remember the peaceful life that they had before, the kind of madness started. And to this day, they are very, very close. So I could also see that, and this was also brought up in The Crown, but I also think it had a degree of truth to it, and it was Philip's favorite. So I also think that would have been it. She kind of would have been the salve to the situation of, I'm dad's favorite. I have a very good relationship with my older brother. I'm pretty good friends with Camilla. I can kind of work my way in there and kind of make all the pieces go together like they need to go together.
I saw a documentary about that called The Woman Who Should Be Queen. And it's like, oh, that's a bit of a pointed title, but carry on.
Yeah. So I could totally see that Anne being the
So
The ca- the ca-
does she move into Clarence house?
I think so. Um Again, kind of that, Princess of Wales in waiting type thing. Of course, she'd be living with the Queen Mother, so that would be interesting. uh, but again, I think Anne could kind of work on that relationship too, of like, come on, Granny, get with the program. You know, Mom said this is okay. This is good now. I'm trying to remember because okay, so let's go to 1973. Charles has finished his military training. They are getting married. Do we want to say they're getting married in St. Paul's, like Charles and Diana do? I guess
Oh,
let's kind of
definitely.
paint the picture
However-
of the wedding.
However, here's the first little butterfly effect.
Okay.
Anne has to delay her engagement.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Anne gets engaged in 1973.
Yeah.
So she
That's
has to
right.
delay her engagement to Mark Phillips.
Oh,
That
interesting.
has a lot of butterflies. Oh, that has a lot of butterflies. Okay.
Because you can't steal the limelight
No.
from your brother.
I mean, even the fact that Princess Margaret had to delay announcing she was pregnant because the Queen was also pregnant with
Mhm.
Anne.
Oh yeah.
And it was like,
Maybe-
nope, I get to announce first because I'm Queen.
Maybe that would be enough pressure for her to call off her engagement with Mark Phillips at that point of just like, well, we have to put this off. Maybe. I do not know how keen they were on each other at the time. Because
Well,
they
we
get
do know
divorced
they got
in
divorced.
89, right?
Yes. But they do
Yep.
have 2 children. So are we not having a Peter and a Zara? You just opened an interesting can of worms, Robert.
Well, I mean,
I'm
we don't
sorry.
I mean, we've
Well,
also wiped out
or-
William and Harry at this point.
or do they because the delay, do they actually manage to stay together?
know. Oh, that's an interesting idea. So
So you
Yeah.
get Peter and Zara, and he gives up the whole idea of he accepts an earldom eventually.
mhm.
So her kids are royal.
That was kind of the point of contention, was this like, well, we're royal, but not really type thing. And it's like, no, we're royal. Like,
Hmm.
my brother will be king. We're royal. I could see that, this kind of being because Anne and Mark have to delay their engagement. It almost gives Mark more of that training, so to
Mhm.
speak, because we tend to focus a lot on the women who have to have the training, but the men that are marrying in have to have that training just as much. Of these are the protocols, these are the expectations, this is what your life is going to become, basically. So I could totally see, I don't think it's completely implausible if they have to delay and Mark kind of gets that chance to get that training, so to speak, and kind of comes around, as Robert, you were saying, of like, okay, if we're going to make this work, I'm willing to make those concessions that he didn't necessarily make in the real timeline. I could see
Mhm.
that.
Okay, so go to your wedding. I agree, St. Paul's, because it's still the big deal. It's still the future king,
It's still a big deal.
and
I
she
was
gets the
trying-
exclamation point dress.
with the 29-foot train.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
When do we
Jeez.
want to set the wedding? What's the best day? Name the date.
We're naming the wedding date. I'm trying to call my mind back to what was going on in 73.
That's what I looked up right now of like, because okay, so Anne Royal marries Captain Mark Phillips November 14th of 1973.
That would obviously get pushed into the next year, 74, maybe even early 75.
Correct. So if
Let's
we
give
wanna-
them the November wedding date in 73.
That
Okay.
could work. That could work. And if Anne and Mark get married in 75, even in early 75, there's still time for Peter to be born in 77. So I think this could all work.
Yeah, we just cut the timeline back up.
Cut the timeline.
Yeah, let's give them to the November wedding. So they take Anne and Mark's wedding date, but it's just St. Paul's instead of, didn't they get married in Westminster Abbey?
Yeah, they were at Westminster.
Yeah, I know her second marriage was up in Scotland because it was obviously kept a little bit quieter. But okay, Westminster Abbey. So we've just switched venues, but same day.
Yeah. And
All right.
we have at the same time going on, the IRA are starting to make bombing runs into England at this time. Like there were several back in September, so fairly close.
Well, interesting you bring that up because right after Anne got married, there was a little kidnapping spree or kidnapping attempt that happened. Remember that?
Not bloody likely.
Yeah, so
is what she said, everyone.
Yes,
In
that is
joke
what
for
she
us.
said. So in the real timeline, Anne and her husband Mark are, I believe, being driven. They're very close to Buckingham Palace. They're somewhere on the Mall.
They were coming back to Buckingham, actually.
That's what I thought. I couldn't remember if they were coming back, going away from Buckingham Palace. And some IRA members attempt to take over the car and force Anne out of the car. And her response is not bloody likely. Where I'm going with that is, first of all, I don't see Charles saying not bloody likely if someone's trying to jump his car. That doesn't sound like something he would say. But if we have a Charles and Camilla wedding in November of 73.
So do they go after them?
Yes.
So March 20th, 1974, returning to Buckingham Palace from a charity event.
Yes.
And the
So do
IRA
we
say, this is our best opportunity yet.
So do we have a kidnapping, hijacking of the car event with Charles and Camilla in the car?
Well, maybe, but the security for Princess Anne was not great at that point. I mean, it was really minimal security, and one of the passersby, wasn't it like a tabloid journalist or something like that who was shot? I mean, like it was not a really great security detail. You would assume the Prince and Princess of Wales would have a little bit more robust security detail. And so maybe when this what is his name, Ball, when he attempted to do the kidnapping, maybe that would have turned out a little. I mean, it would have turned out the same for him probably. I mean, he didn't get away with it or anything like that, but maybe he wouldn't have. There wouldn't have been so many other casualties. He would have been restrained a lot more quickly. But yes, I don't see Charles or Camilla, looking him in the face and saying not bloody likely. I don't see that at all.
I would agree with that. If Charles and Camilla as Prince and Princess of Wales, or if someone is able to get in their car so that they could say not bloody likely, we have a bigger problem because that's not a very robust security detail.
Also, I don't know if you can necessarily kidnap the crown prince. Like you could, I think at that point it would have to be more of an assassination attempt if you're going to go for it than a kidnapping, because it's like, yeah, that's going to be the most difficult job ever.
True. All right. So just a little brief aside. So I'm trying to remember, and Eric, maybe you can look it up. Eric Bond. When Camilla's children are born, because now that we're kind of moving forward, they're married. When do we start having you mentioned that we've already taken William and Harry out of the picture, which that has some interesting ramifications going forward that we can get into. But when do we have Charles and Camilla as Prince and Princess of Wales starting to have the next generation of royals, our heirs to our heirs? Kind of basing it off.
If we're going based off the children Camilla had in our timeline, the first one, Tom Parker Bowles, not the best name. Oh, he's a food critic. December 18th, 1974.
Okay, so obviously that can't happen. Well, yes, it could. We're
It could happen.
73.
Yeah,
It could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly not wasting any time.
No.
But so let's just say, let's say they have two kids, because as memory serves, she had two kids as well.
Yeah, they both had two.
So let's say we've got one in the mid 70s, one in the late 70s. We'll call it 75 and 78. That seems nice and round. Or something like that. So you've got two.
1978, Eric, was actually when her second child was born. So
There you go.
Uncanny predictions are added.
And since men do the job on determination, we're going to leave them both as males.
Okay.
So we'll get the heir and the spare. And I am going to propose, just for the sake of moving forward with conversations, their names are Harry and William. Because that's because that's going to be easier for us to have the discussion with.
And they're just a few years older than their respective, their current timelines. All right. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, if you were the heir to the heir, there are very limited names to choose from. You're basically going to be a William or a George, or, I mean, Harry's name is technically Henry, although I don't think there will ever be a Henry the Ninth. Sorry, I think Henry the Eighth kind of ruined that for everybody.
Yeah.
How about Fritz?
You've got you've only got a few names in there. That's
Charles.
Charles,
So, sure.
Edward, George, and Edward's kind of tainted like Henry is, and so you really don't have a lot of great names. So
yeah, and I was even reading something when Charles decided to go with Charles. It was even like, well, even that one's a little tainted.
There's a little sketchiness there.
I think
things went better for the second Charles than the first Charles, so hopefully it's not a jump over thing.
I think you should have picked George personally. That's just me. I think you should have been a George.
I tend to agree with you on that one. I was like, George was in your name. You could have easily been George the Seventh, but
you could have been George the Seventh.
Should have been Oliver the Second, but that's on my own personal feelings.
But yes, I agree with you, Robert. For the sake of simplicity, they have two children that are also named William and Henry Harry. Mm-hmm. They're just a little bit off. They're a little bit older than our William and Harry.
So they move forward. So the first question I've got, let's chase Eric's rabbit just for a moment, where he says it wasn't a kidnapping attempt, but an assassination attempt.
Okay.
Does that change the IRA conflict? Because it most definitely escalated in 1980. When
they ramp it up to 11 a little sooner?
Yes, I think it does. Because you just tried to kill the king. I mean, this is, it ramps up in our timeline when Mountbatten.
Because that's 79 in the real time. Yeah.
79.
Which the leader of Sinn Féin only just apologized for. Like during the funeral for Queen Elizabeth, she apologized to King Charles about the assassination of his honorary grandfather. Mm-hmm. But the other guy who was like her predecessor has even up until like 2016, I think, said, no, he was a legitimate target.
Hmm.
But we're going to get into the ethics of terrorism at another time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do think that if that's the case, I do think you ramp it up against the IRA pretty quickly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we have, kind of the bloody Sunday and kind of the things that were happening in the early 80s happening in the late 70s.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. And that is probably going to lead to a more reserved Charles on the matter of perhaps that pardons him, because he's always been an odd political duck. Like he seems to have a variety of opinions, but the whole, he's done his best so far to kind of encourage reaching between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in our own time. So maybe this assassination attempt on himself and his wife, if at all successful, I don't think it would be successful. I think the gunmen would be shot down in the streets before they even got close. But I think just even that shock might be enough to where maybe he is more of a, nope, those 6 counties are definitely ours. And we should really support. Yeah.
Yeah. He very much takes the hard line on it. I totally agree with that.
I definitely see that. And it is true that he's kind of a little bit more of a I don't want to say appeaser, but kind of a little bit more of a conciliator but I think definitely having this experience, like, nope, it's that hard line. There's no negotiating. For sure.
You tried to kill me. You tried to kill my wife. We're over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, we're not playing nice here.
Agreed.
This
Yeah.
also changes the new William and Harry, because they don't have as much exposure to middle class life, or even what the life of an average Brit could see, that they were influenced by their mother Diana about. And so now we have even more cloistered royal children.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean,
Yeah.
you would even argue that the William and Harry that we have in our timeline are quote unquote cloistered. But I think, again, to use the phrase, ramp that up to 11. You know, there would have been no trips to Disney. There would have been no going to McDonald's on the tube. No walking around the corner to go to school. Definitely. And I think, so how do we think that experience and them growing up would endear that William and Harry to the public, kind of comparing that William and Harry to the William and Harry that we know that we have? If they're the cloistered, you know, you see me on the balcony and that's it. How do you think that experience, you know, as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, but how do you think that experience would kind of endear them or not endear them to the public?
I think the public's opinion of them would be much more akin to what it's historically been for Charles. I mean, you know, not particularly popular. I don't think they would be endeared to the public. I think they would be considered sort of generic, out of touch royals. And I think that in many ways, I think that would put the monarchy itself under threat. I think one of the reasons why you have a little more, maybe, if I don't know if I'd use the word enthusiasm, but let's call it enthusiasm. If there's any sort of enthusiasm for the monarchy, it's certainly not about King Charles. It's about the possibility of a King William. And so if a King William is not a draw, or King Harry is not a draw for the public, I wonder if you might awaken a few more Republican sentiments in the UK.
I think at this point, especially if the rest of the timeline plays out a little bit more, where, you know, Queen Elizabeth is queen forever. She doesn't have her horrible years. She has to deal with Andrew still, because Andrew is Andrew and he's going to do what he does.
Wait till you hear my suggestion about what happens to Andrew. I have a good
one. I may like this, but I think, Eric, if you're going to talk about that, I agree with you. I think the monarchy is in serious trouble the minute. I wonder if where we are at this moment in history is 180 degrees different. That the prime minister is just sitting there with Parliament going, I don't know about this monarchy thing anymore. Yeah. You know, we've had a good run with Queen Elizabeth. We don't really have an empire. You know, a lot of the other Commonwealth countries are going to throw it off for sure at that point. You know, because you don't have William, Kate, and Harry and Meghan, the Fab Four, running around with all that they had. Diana, good, better, otherwise, she radically changed the monarchy. And that change never occurs.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I saw a poll today that William is now the most popular royal. Obviously, it was Queen Elizabeth, but William is the most popular royal, which I think plays to your point of, you know, we've got the William that we have. If it's this other William, he would not be the most popular. And I also think it's interesting that we're talking about, you know, they are this way because of the IRA and the attacks on them by the IRA that kind of, you know, brings them insular and cloisters them. And it's interesting because doing that, insulating themselves like that, actually ramps up the Republican sentiments of, you know, you're going so far insular that you're actually going to end up losing everything that you stand for because you're not reacting to what's going on outside of you, which I think is interesting.
And just to follow that IRA thread, I think it becomes so pronounced. I think Charles puts influence on British broadcasting television to ban Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1990. Because they have an episode called The High Ground where they talk about the ethics of terrorism, and a character makes an offhanded reference to one of the they say, oh yeah, by 2019, Irish Republican terrorists were able to take back Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom and make it part of the Republic of Ireland. And I think for having a monarch who's almost assassinated by the IRA, they're just like, no more Star Trek can be aired in our country.
That's interesting. I mean, I could totally see that. I remember, and as I'm a huge Star Trek: The Next Generation fan, by the way, and I remember that episode. As soon as you said, BBC bans, bans Star Trek: The Next Generation, I was like, I know what he's going to go next. I remember that episode.
Because they banned that episode until like 2004, I think.
Yeah,
to where
yeah.
they were like okay with it to air.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually held that one, but yeah, it gets a total ban. Okay, so what happens with Andrew? I want to chase that rabbit.
Yeah, let's
go.
go. I
right.
want to
Oh my
chase
gosh.
that.
Okay, how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? It's simple.
I will remind everybody that this is a show that without an explicit tag, and
Yes,
so we're gonna keep it clean. Everybody,
Hey,
keep it clean.
Hey,
My comment was
Andrew.
Andrew.
we can get a little PG on the live stream, but here on the podcast, it's gonna be clean.
Okay, so
I promise I will keep myself to the standards and practices of a 1976 production by Claudius when I describe the possibilities of a Prince Andrew and how to solve the problem.
and then if
Okay.
you want our full unhinged opinion about although by the magic of technology, this will air after the live stream that will
Yeah.
drop into your feed.
Oh man. Okay.
If you
yeah,
want to
that's
see
fine.
our conspiracy theory boards, you have to subscribe to a specialized website. But
That's fine. Well, they'll just have to people who missed the first one and want to hear us a little kind of unscripted, unplugged. They'll just have to tune into the second live stream.
Yes,
That
I
will-
like
that
your
will come-
plug.
That will come in late. We don't know. So
So to set this up, I want to tell you a little story about my
Okay.
grandfather. His name's Ken. He's a great guy. He's from California. In the 60s, to avoid getting drafted, he signed up for the army and was stationed to Germany. His mom was the wife of the vice mayor, and she had society friends, and she tried to get him engaged to one of her daughters. She gave him a photo of the daughter to take in his wallet all the way to Germany. So picture this. Germany, 1963, you're at a vending machine, and right ahead of you, you see a man take out his wallet, and there's a photo of that girl your mom gave you. And you think, I know the best thing to say. Hey, I have one of those too. And then you see that man's face sink and disappear, and you never see him again for the remainder of your tour. That's just a fun story about my grandfather, but also my lead into Princess Diana gets engaged to Andrew to fulfill a family commitment.
I could see this. I
Oh,
hate
I totally
to do it
could too.
because they're
I,
closer in age.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they are closer in age, and they really wanted something going on with the Spencers, and she was the most likely, and okay, all right, I'm on board.
Okay,
have
I can buy this.
Diana, Duchess of York.
She
Diana
becomes
Duchess.
Fergie. She becomes
Yeah,
Fergie.
she becomes.
Fergie.
Oh, that's weird. She becomes okay. Because
She
Fergie is so
becomes-
Fergie.
Yes.
She becomes Derby?
Fergie, Sarah
Oh,
Ferguson.
Fergie.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
So Diana, Princess of York, how much of an impact is she able to have on the monarchy? Because I will argue any impact on the monarchy that Sarah Ferguson had was solely because Diana paved the path, and the two of them became peas in a pod.
Yeah,
Mm.
they were like this. They were
Yeah.
peas in a pod. That's really interesting. Because yes, they were peas in a pod, but I wonder if how much influence Sarah Ferguson had on Diana. and kind of pulling Diana out of her shell, because my experience, you know, I mainly my knowledge of the royal family kind of has them together, that peas in the pod thing. But if I am remembering right, you know, Diana hadn't kind of found her niche, role, voice, whatever word you want to use, until closer to when Fergie was kind of entering the picture, because, you know, they obviously had an engagement, they had the wedding, they got married in 86. So I'm that's an interesting concept, because I wonder, yes, Diana shaped the monarchy, but I wonder how much it was Fergie kind of and Diana kind of shaping each other. And if it's Diana alone, is she the same Diana? Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And does she then feel like maybe she has to be the good one who people feel sorry for when Andrew gets into the press for alleged things?
We're assuming that he still does. Andrew being Andrew, we assume that he doesn't. He's not.
Allegedly,
I don't think we could
bad
change that, no matter who he's married to.
So we allegedly
There was the
Andrew
whole
is still
Stark
badly
thing before
behaved.
Fergie. So
yeah, he had things before Fergie entered the picture.
So he is allegedly continuing to be badly behaved. We're saying allegedly. We're using our words carefully.
Yes, we are not opening ourselves up to potential legal troubles.
Nope.
After already signing off on the IRA, apparently, potentially earlier this episode. But, you know, I mean, listen, I don't have any donations to Sinn Féin because they were denied on international grounds. So I just want to make myself clear.
Yeah, but I'm curious. I totally agree. I can totally see Andrew being married to Diana, because I think you're completely right. They wanted a Spencer marriage. They are much closer in age. It makes sense. But if we don't have Sarah Ferguson, is the Diana that we know the Diana that we know? And I don't know if she is. I think
she's the quiet in the back. She is more of a traditional royal at that point.
Yeah, she's
She's
please
not a
feel
pop
sorry
star.
for me. It is, I think, probably a same situation of, I was voluntold to get married. You know, I yes, I signed up for it, but it was very much like, we are telling you were going to do this. So that's a very interesting concept to me, because I don't see this Diana being the Diana that we know as Diana.
Right.
For a number of reasons, but I think one of those reasons is there's no Sarah Ferguson to kind of pull Diana out of that shell and kind of be the wild, you know, wild child, untempered. Let's use that phrase, untempered one, that kind of makes Diana say like, oh, I can kind of, you know, buck against the system a little bit too. I think if Sarah Ferguson's not in the picture, I think Diana is that very demure, I do what I'm told, I ride the line, I don't buck the system, I don't fight. I'm married to the heir, I'm married to the spare, I'm not married to the heir in this scenario.
Maybe she has like a Tammy Faye kind of like storyline where she's like bucking the system later on, and she's just like, well, you know, why wouldn't we help people if we can? Maybe that's kind of where I was going forth of like, well, if we have to have a Spencer wedding, what's going to create more interesting forks than her marrying Andrew?
Another interesting concept to this, because now we have Diana and Camilla both in the picture, but they are not rivals. They are sisters-in-law.
Yeah.
So what's that relationship look like?
I think Camilla holds herself aloof.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. I don't think they're close. I think they keep appearances up. But I don't think they're close, and I don't think they particularly.
They're
care
not
for each
having
other.
teas and crumpet every afternoon.
Nope, definitely not.
Play dates with the kids?
Maybe play dates with the kid.
Only if the cameras are present.
Yeah, I get it's always been my read like that they constantly have to remind Andrew of like, you are not the heir. You are not as important as you seem to think you're important. Because isn't he like the only one who gave his children titles?
No,
Because I know Anne's kids don't have.
Edwards do.
Edward's
Yeah.
kids. Okay.
Of course, Edwards, because he's child number 4. I mean, it's, his daughter's a lady. She is not a princess. And his son is a viscount. He's not even a lord. He's an honorable, I think. But yeah, but his daughters, they're princesses. And they're princesses of the blood. We could get into a whole thing about who has to curtsy to who when people are present. Because that's a whole thing with Beatrice and Eugenie. But I definitely think that's true, that Andrew tends to have maybe a self-inflated view of himself. And I think that comes from a few different places. I think again, I'm going to reference The Crown again. There was a whole episode basically where Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth are talking, and basically Prince Philip, and basically Prince Philip says, "You have a favorite?" And she said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Yes, you do. Go spend time with each of your children and come tell me who your favorite is, because I know who your favorite is." Spoiler alert, her favorite is Andrew.
Yeah.
His favorite is Anne, and he admitted that. In the episode, he even said, and she was like, "Well, who's your favorite?" He's like, "Anne." And you have a favorite
seems
too.
like a bad parent to admit that. Yeah, I can believe it.
He's like, "My favorite is Anne, and you have a favorite too. You just don't want to admit it. But go spend time with your kids and come tell me who your favorite is." And her favorite was Andrew. So I don't know if it's that, but yeah, I definitely see Andrew having a little bit of a higher than mighty view of himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least Anne takes the gold in the Olympics in this timeline. I think we throw her that. She had to put off her wedding. She didn't even get to get kidnapped for it. I think we can give her the gold medal.
Give her the gold medal. I'm on. I like that. I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's our win-win, right?
Because I think she'll probably become the royal who the public still like the most of this generation, to where they're like, I don't know anything about Edward. Anne at least won us a gold medal. She's doing something. And then Charles has all these uncomfortable topics, all these uncomfortable opinions about Irish people. I can't go drinking with him.
And we've never even met his sons. They're both hermits. They never come out. We barely know what they look like.
I don't think they exist.
Yeah, we barely know what they even look like.
Yeah, I'm a princeling truther. I think they're robots. Like the first Charles, I think there's been some kind of baby switcheroo plot.
Well, that may be a topic for a different episode. Maybe we'll explore that on the live stream.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories we love.
Conspiracy theories we make up when we're bored.
Yeah, we can make up some conspiracy theories.
That'd be fun. All right, so where did we chased some rabbits and some other woodland creatures. So where are we now? We've got some cloistered sons, also named
Cloistered
William and
sons
Harry.
of Camilla and Charles.
So very quickly, does the British government elections change any in the early 80s, where the Conservative Party takes over and Thatcher becomes prime minister? Because now we've had to take a harder line on the IRA. Does that affect British politics?
Oh, that's interesting.
Or does the Conservatives come on even earlier?
Well, I guess it depends on how quickly everything turns around, or how quickly the hammer drops in the IRA. I'm gonna say no. I still think it's Thatcher in '79.
Okay.
And so then really you've got a more probably a more popular and maybe more durable conservative government, even from '79 all the way to 97. But I also can't see, kind of given the way the world was in 1997, given the way sort of John Major's premiership had gone over those 7 years, I guess I don't see a way to avoid, after almost 20 years, having Labour take over. Now, would it have necessarily been Tony Blair? Maybe not. But I think after 18 years of conservative government, I think that's hard.
And this is a world most likely without Diana passing away. Now, she might still struggle with mental health issues. It would be hard to gauge that, unfortunately.
I think
because
I think for the sake of this, we assume that there is no accident in 1997, and that it is 2022 and Diana is still very much alive. Whether she and Prince Andrew are still married is a
together.
separate question. We would say likely not. We're going to assume that she is very much still alive, and yeah, I think
Well,
that's
and
I think
also,
that's
it
reasonable.
wouldn't have been the pressure cooker that was on Diana. If she's married to Andrew, yes, there's scrutiny, but not near as much as being married to the heir, being married to Charles. Yeah, they're in a pressure cooker. Yeah, there's scrutiny. Yeah, there's, all the things, but it's lessened. So again, it'd be a different Diana than the Diana we had in the real timeline in 96, 97.
Well, and remember, the whole family is more cloistered because she never opens it up.
Right.
And so you don't even get the queen making the decision she made post Diana's death. That honestly, I think
you have a queen that possibly stays in Balmoral and says,
Yeah.
like, I'm not leaving. This is what I do during the summer, and I'm not changing it.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a possibility.
do you think they still leave the EU? Do we have the Good Sunday agreements? Do they still leave the EU? We have all these different things, especially now that we've introduced the idea of Charles surviving an assassination attempt. And I'm still assuming that Uncle Dickie dies in that bombing on his fishing boat.
So how would we affect that? I'm wondering how would we affect downstream politics? So what we had for the leave versus remain is really, I mean, I don't recall a lot of influence from the I don't recall a lot of influence from any royals. Do you? I mean
No,
they were kind of
not really.
famously circumspect about it, and I guess I don't see that really changing. So I guess the question is are British politics changed overall? Is there an overall more, we'll call it more I'm using American terms here because I'm American, more progressive pro-Europe sentiment that is still resident, or is there a more Eurosceptic conservative sentiment by that point? And I think it's hard to predict that many years later. I think that's very challenging.
I think it would definitely be more of a Republican leaning sentiment, especially because there is no Diana to, as Robert pointed out, to bring the family out of its shell. There's also no Diana for the Queen to, I'm going to say that it might be a little controversial to say it, she does not have a rebranding opportunity at the start of the millennium to present a more human image to the people using the death of her former daughter-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah,
So,
I think the ultimate deadline of the fork is now, and the ultimate deadline is the queen is dead. Is there a long live the king?
well, maybe not. And yeah, maybe not. Maybe this is because I'm not hearing. I mean, again, it's been a few days, but I'm not hearing a lot of rumblings. In at least in the press that I've read about, all of a sudden people are sort of taking up the mantle of a United Republic. But could that be the case if in a different timeline, if people are more skeptical of the crown? I think there certainly could be. But then it's kind of is the United Republic, is that an entity that wants to be more integrated with Europe or less integrated with Europe? I mean, we don't know. I mean, that's an entity that doesn't exist.
I think it's more of what we see today, where there are elements of the United Kingdom that wants to be part of Europe, like Scotland and Northern Ireland, and that just gets exacerbated. We still have the issue with Wales. Wales is still hardcore, kind of wanting a kingdom of its own, but still wanting to be a part of the United Kingdom. I think I one time saw a video where they were getting both sides about the Scotland separation. And a guy said, well, if this happens in a few years, will we be united? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what comes to pass when you have a monarchy that has seemingly less and less relevance to a modern society. Now, you could argue maybe that's what makes them more popular, of just like it takes an almost mystical aspect, kind of like the czars in the countryside, where people are like, well, I hate my landlord, but I love the king who lives far away, who is just powerless to stop these evil landlords. That I have something like, I have hope because there is a czar. Maybe people are like, I know the queen is in Balmora. I know, Margaret Thatcher is evil, or John Major or Tony Blair is evil, but I know the queen is there and they're just a declawed kitten who would help me and come to my rescue if they could. So I love them. I love my distant parent figure. Or maybe they're like, they left to go get cigarettes and they never came back.
I can't think of a better place to end than that, Eric.
We all went on a smoke break. And
We all went
never
on a
came
smoke
back.
break and we never came back. The end of the monarchy.
Are
Congratulations,
people going to be
everybody.
shocked that I was on an episode where we killed the monarchy?
You know what? I think
Probably,
it's the
but-
most American thing we could have done.
It's
Well,
the most American
it's the
thing.
most
we could've done.
American, but I honestly think without Diana, and just to sum up my thought, I honestly think without Diana's re-imaging of the monarchy, followed by the causal rebranding that her death caused, because even Camilla went through an entire rebranding.
Oh, I will be honest, I used to hate Camilla.
My wife still does. It's okay.
She
My
grew
wife
on
cannot
me.
stand her.
She grew
Although
on
my
me.
wife grudgingly admits she has done to quote her, not a bad job in the past several days. So, but I think the monarchy without Diana at this point is in incredibly serious jeopardy.
Yeah, I agree. I think Diana, to the Queen's ability to rehabilitate herself, to William and Harry, and Catherine. I think you've got a line of people that have sort of maintained some popularity in the public, and I think if you don't have those specific people with those specific set of circumstances, I agree. I think a King Charles III in that situation is very precarious on the throne.
I would totally agree. I mean, there's a reason that it went from 1997 all the way to 2005 before Charles actually married Camilla, because he knew that you had to have that space for that rebrand, that recentering, that before you could kind of bring Camilla back in and say like, okay, she's in the new monarchy. She's not part of the old. She's in the new, and we accept her. So I would totally agree. I think we killed the monarchy if
Yep.
we have a Charles Camilla marriage in 1973. I don't
Get
think
out my
we have
mission accomplished banner from the back.
Mission accomplished. We got.
We did it. We deposed a monarchy.
You didn't kill my Britophileness. I'm still gonna be that until
No. And everybody's still alive. Like we did. I mean, in fact, we saved Diana.
Yeah.
So we're even one human up. So
Yeah,
we're even, we've
We're
done
hypothetical
some
heroes in this
we've done
case.
we've done some great work here, folks.
Yeah.
So everybody's
saved
still alive.
Diana, but
Everybody's
killed
fine.
the monarchy.
We just killed the monarchy. They've got, they still own stuff. They own plenty of stuff. Nobody's starving.
Yeah, the King's Speech does not win an Oscar because nobody cares.
Ah,
But Inception gets it.
Pop
I
culture.
you know what
I
is so
like the
weird?
movie. I like the
I-
movie.
You know
Yeah,
what's so
it's-
weird? Jake and I watched that movie. I'm not kidding. Like 4 days before all the stuff happened with Queen Elizabeth. Like
Oh,
it was
yeah?
almost like we like premonitioned it or something. Like, because he was like, we were just watching like all the things. Yeah, that was it. I like that movie.
I like the movie too. It was good. So
Yeah, it's good. You just can't watch it during the daylight because of the cinematography, because it is such a dark movie.
oh
If you
yeah.
try to watch it with a little bit of sunlight, it's just like it's a black screen. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's an audio play.
Don't get me
Can't
started on don't get me started on the 6th Harry Potter movie. talk about bad cinematography. Anyway,
Oh goodness.
Prisoner
anyway.
of Azkaban is the best one. That's the way I'm going to leave.
Yes, it is. I would agree with you.
All right, we
Yes.
saved a life. We killed a monarchy. We've created a new republic. Whether it's the United Republic or the Republic of England and Wales, we really don't know. That is a topic for a different fork in time. So please feel free to tune in next time. Alexis is on when we're going to be talking about that.
Oh, because yeah, just because we killed the monarchy in this episode does not be we will not be going back to the monarchy many times. Specifically,
Oh
if
well, we
I'm
will
on
be.
the
I'm
show.
just saying that there maybe could be a part 2 for this one. Like what are the downstream, like what does 2030 look like in this case? I'm just saying we could there's a lot
In
of
the
there's a lot
Republic?
of roads we could take.
Have
Yeah.
I
Oh,
told
yeah.
you guys my idea for a Halloween episode?
No, you have not.
Okay. Here's my idea. So, one of the guys who was who did the architecture for the Capitol building, he had a wonderful idea, a wonderful, horrible idea, to bring George Washington back to life. He said he had had a dream which inspired him to basically electrify Washington, keep him well preserved, and fill him with lamb's blood. And he said that would bring him back to life. So I want to pitch an episode where we just follow what happens to a United States with a zombie George Washington. We just
So we're saying that it works. So it's not that we fill
It's
him with lamb's blood and
Frankenstein
electricity, and we just
with George
basically
Washington.
we light the world's stinkiest fire. Like that's all that would happen anyway. But
Yeah.
I don't want
For a
to.
Halloween
You know what?
special, guys.
I don't want to take your idea. I'm not trying to harsh your flow, Eric. Like let's reanimate George Washington and let's have a zombie president.
Yeah.
The
I'm
eternal
totally down
zombie
for this being
president.
the Halloween special.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
Okay.
before we chase too many more rabbits, I'm gonna wrap us up. This was a very fun episode. Thank y'all for joining me tonight. Yeah, this was a fun group that we haven't had a chance to have all together for an episode. So fun. So I'm gonna do our normal kind of wrapping up things. I literally have notes next to me because normally my dad takes care of this, but I'm going to do it this time to kind of get some wrap up things. Of course, as we mentioned earlier in the show, by the magic of recording and editing and calendars and all the things, this episode will actually be coming out after we do our live stream, which please, I hope you joined us on our live stream, but if not, make sure to go back into your podcast feed on whatever podcatcher you use, because we will be releasing the audio from the live stream. So you'll be able to hear us unfiltered, unhinged, after hours, however you want to say it. We're really excited for that. So we hope you do go back and listen to that, even though this episode is coming out after that is happening later on this week when we record it. Oh, the magic of timelines. They're great. So do want to mention that for sure. Also want to mention that we have started a Discord channel. If you would like to come and join us and talk about all things podcast and just general life and other things, we have that Discord channel available. The link to that will be in the show notes. We actually, that started a couple of days ago as of this recording, and we actually have had a couple listeners join so far to that Discord channel. So it's just another way for us to kind of get to know you and talk to you a little more frequently. Talk to our listeners. I was really excited. We had a listener join, and of course my dad popped in and said, what are some of your favorite episodes? And he said, well, I'm British, so any episode with Alexis. So well, interesting to see what he'll think of this episode. I'm interested to hear his thoughts. But definitely join us on Discord and connect with us there. We've also been talking, we have a channel where we do some kind of just some housekeeping things. We have a Slack channel just for our contributors for the podcast, and we have been talking about the online game Diplomacy, and my dad has recently got back into that, Don, and so we're actually going to be sharing the link if you would like to come play Diplomacy with us. Definitely feel free to come do that. We have tons of ways that you can get connected with us now, not just coming and listening to the podcast. Of course, we have our tried and true methods. We have a forkandtimepodcast.com that you can go and you can leave comments. You can get in touch with us there. That has all of our episodes that we've ever released ever, as well as bios of everybody that I can see on my screen. so you can get to know us a little better, and including the dog that you might have heard in the background, Madison, the official mascot of the podcast. You can also connect with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, AFIT Podcast. Connect with us there. We'd love to talk to you on those channels as well. Last but not least, we have a store that we'll be sharing the link to. I'm very, very excited. I now have a Fork in Time travel mug. I have a combined Fork in Time and Room Where It Happened actual like desktop mug that I could use in regular time. And I'm excited because we just put in the store the Room Where It Happened travel mug. So now I'm going to be able to have a travel mug for both podcasts. But we'll be sharing that link as well. If you would like to get some merchandise, there's tons of things you can get. Coffee mugs, of course, phone cases, t-shirts, bags, all kinds of things that are going to be on that website. So you can spread the word of the podcast in not just digital ways, but maybe with some merch that you might be carrying around one day or wearing. So those are all exciting things that are going on in the world of A Fork in Time and the Room Where It Happened. After we stop recording, I'm going to talk to Eric Rush about the next Room Where It Happened because I'm excited about that one. And I want to see when we can get it going. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I'm going to call us out. And since I usually get to do this, I will start the first part of this. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go around the room and say, is there anything that anybody else would like to add? So as I started with the beginning, I'm going to start with next to me on my screen. So Eric Bond, is there anything else you would like to add for this episode before we sign out?
I really think you should watch the pro cut of the Diana musical that is available on Netflix. It is terrible.
There we go. Robert, anything?
Pay attention to our podcast. Come back, listen to us again. Join us on the live stream. And the live stream YouTube archive will be there as well.
Yes. So even we hope that you caught the live stream. Again, I'm trying to talk like past tense because this is coming after. We hope you caught us for the live stream, but yes, that will be available as well for you to watch afterwards. All right, Eric Rush, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I would just put in the plug for the podcasts and the live stream as well. In case anybody can't hear it in my voice, the team knows I am pumped about the live stream. I'm so excited about it. And so, so I hope that this is one of not many. We're not going to be able to do these all the time, but it'd be super cool if we could do these every once in a while, get the team together on a third.
I will tell the people on this phone call, I saw my dad yesterday. I can't remember if I mentioned that on podcast or not, but I actually saw my dad yesterday and I tried. I was like, co-founder daughter privilege. Tell me a question.
No, I don't want to know the question. I don't
want
to.
He wouldn't do it.
Give you one.
No, I don't want to know the questions because I want to be.
Wow.
I want to do this. I want it to be totally organic, totally spontaneous. It's going to be what it was 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock on a Thursday. Is that right? Am I thinking about the time right? So 8 o'clock on a Thursday Central Time. We'll figure it out. It's going to be some time on the Thursday night, and I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I will have bourbon. Not a lot of bourbon, but a little bit of bourbon because it's a Thursday night and I have to work the next day. But
Eric, I'm gonna have to ship you a bottle.
Yeah, by all means. But
I thought you guys were talking about a Napoleon. I apologize.
So bring your cocktails, everybody, to the live stream, to the next live stream. So it'll be good. Yeah,
but he wouldn't give me a question. I know nothing. I know nothing about the live stream, so I'm just as in the dark as you guys. So
you know what it is like to have been Prince Charles.
Yes. Anyway, so now that we've all gone around the room, again, I want to thank everybody that I can see on my screen for jumping on tonight and recording this episode. This was fun. As my dad and I have mentioned before, we started this podcast just because we liked history and we liked talking about history together. So we said, hey, why don't we try this and see if anybody else actually likes to listen to us blather on. But through that, we have met a bunch of really cool people. Of course, Don, my dad, knew Robert previously, but I think it was Chris Pola was like, oh, I thought you knew Robert forever. And I was like, no, I never met Robert until we started the podcast.
Don and I did not reconnect until
Yeah.
Several years after you were born, my dear.
I was like, no.
Don and
did
I
not
knew
grow-
each other in high school. So
Yeah, I was like, I did not grow up with Robert. So it's been really fun to kind of grow this community and get to know people that I wouldn't know had we not started on this little adventure a few years ago. So I'm excited to see where it's going. Excited to get more people involved, because the people we've had involved so far have been amazing people. But yeah, excited for the live stream coming up and the fun things on the horizon. So I don't know who I'm throwing this to, but I'm going to throw out a suggestion that if someone happens upon a fork in time, somebody tell me what they should do.
You should take it.
Awesome. Have a good evening. Have a good night. Whenever you're listening to this, I keep saying evening because we're listening to this. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to A Fork in Time, the alternate history podcast. Learn more and provide feedback by visiting our website at www.aforkintimepodcast.com. Connect to us on Facebook at facebook.com/aforkintime or follow us on Twitter at AFIT Podcast. If you want to support the show financially, visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/aforkintime. We hope you will join us next time.